US President Joe Biden has tested positive for COVID, according to the White House, forcing him to cancel an event in Las Vegas and likely sidelining him for days following the conclusion of former President Trump's nominating convention on later today, actually. Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, said in a statement that earlier today, following his first event in Las Vegas, Biden tested positive for COVID-19. She added that he is vaccinated and boosted and he is experiencing mild symptoms. She said Mr. Biden would travel from Las Vegas to Delaware, where he would actually self-isolate. But if Joe Biden continues to test positive for the next week or more, it could keep him off the campaign trail. And if he continues to have symptoms, it could hamper his ability to perform well in interviews that he could do from home as well. But Joe Biden used his positive COVID-19 diagnosis to take a dig at Elon Musk and Republican opponent Donald Trump. In fact, Biden posted on X saying, "I'm sick," soon after news circulated of his testing positive for COVID-19. However, he followed that up with another post that continued of Elon Musk and his rich buddies trying to buy this election. And if you agree, pitch in here. That post included photos of Musk and Trump, along with a link to a donation site for the Biden campaign.
I made a serious mistake in the whole debate. And look, when I originally ran, you may remember it, I said I was going to be a transitional candidate. And I thought that I'd be able to move from this, just pass it on to someone else. But I didn't anticipate things getting so divided. And quite frankly, I think the only thing age brings a little bit of wisdom. And I think I've demonstrated that I know how to get things done for the country, in spite of the fact we were told we couldn't get it done. But there's more to do, and I'm reluctant to walk away from that.
Hyer Benji joins us with the latest update from Ground Zero. He joins us live from Washington, D.C. at the moment. Biden's third bout with COVID, it comes as some of his allies and supporters are continuing to press for him to drop out of the race, citing concerns about his ability to defeat Donald Trump in November.
Yes, well, let's start with the good news, shall we? Joe Biden says, quote, he feels good. He is vaccinated. He is boosted, as you say. This is not the first time that he's caught COVID. But this is a major blow. It comes amid those calls for him to step aside, just as he was trying to withstand that pressure and head out on the campaign trail. Though there had been, in the past 24 hours alone, repeated demands for him to consider his position. They came firstly from Adam Schiff, a senior member of the Democrat Party, who says he has serious concerns about whether Joe Biden can defeat Donald Trump in November. On top of that, we're learning that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, in a one-to-one meeting with Joe Biden, told him forcefully that the best thing he could do for the country would be to withdraw. And we're told that message is being heeded by a more receptive president. Still, so far, the 81-year-old has offered sort of a temperate defiance, though the line at which he said he step aside has certainly thinned. Initially, he said that he would only consider removing himself from the candidacy if there was some form of divine intervention. Now he says all it would take is some medical condition, not including, you presume, COVID-19. That denial still not enough to stop the flow of pressure in his direction, and in a bid really to try to prevent Joe Biden being ousted, the Democrat National Committee, I should say, is trying to bring forward the date on which he would be officially decided to be the nominee. That's not being taken well by many lawmakers on Capitol Hill, and the stark reality is also borne out in the polls, which show he is losing vast support amongst Democrat voters.
Yes, thanks so much, Hyer Benji, as always, for joining us with that live update from Washington. As Hyer is reporting, nearly 2 in 3 Democrats say Joe Biden should step aside from the 2024 race. This as per the latest poll conducted by the Associated Press and NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. It was largely conducted prior to the assassination attempt against former President Trump over the weekend. But this poll found that 70% of voters surveyed said Biden should withdraw from the race and allow someone else to take on Trump this November. 65% of Democratic respondents said they believe Biden should step aside after his poor debate performance sparked worries about his ability to beat Trump and lead for another 4 years if re-elected. Only 35% of Democrats, by the way, said Biden should continue running for president. For further clarity, let's go across to Voice of America's Steve Herman, who joins us at the moment. Steve, since this poll was conducted mostly before Saturday's assassination attempt on Trump, it's unclear whether the shooting influenced people's views of Biden. But what have you been picking up on ground zero? Has Saturday's attack garnered sympathy that will likely translate into electoral gains for Donald Trump?
There's no evidence that it's moving the needle very much in the preliminary polling. I think what it does here in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention, where thousands of delegates, diehard supporters of the party and Donald Trump have gathered, it really helps fire them up even further. And what it may do is get Republicans to go out to the polls in November that might have stayed at home, not thinking that they really need to go vote to make a difference in their respective states.
Right. In fact, Biden's recent diagnosis with COVID, having COVID is all but certain to complicate the president's ability to answer his critics, right? Many of whom have said that they want him to show that he still has the vigor and energy to prosecute the case against Trump, whether it's in campaign rallies, interviews, or other events.
Well, it just seems that Joe Biden can't catch a good break right now. There was that disastrous performance at the debate. And, the further pressure coming from prominent Democrats. We had one today, Congressman Adam Schiff, who's probably going to win the U.S. Senate seat in California this year. It was very close to former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, coming out just hours before that COVID announcement, saying that Joe Biden needs to pass the torch. So every day, it just seems that there's a little bit more bad news for Joe Biden, while the news this week here in the United States is very much focused on what's going on in this building right behind me, the Republican National Convention, which is essentially a coronation for the third consecutive time for Donald Trump as the Republican Party's presidential nominee.
Right. In fact, Trump's vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, is set to make his first speech as the Republican vice presidential nominee where you are on the third night of the Republican National Convention. And we are hearing that the night is expected to focus specifically on foreign policy. What are the key takeaways so far?
Well, the key takeaways have been very much a focus on the issue of immigration, on the issue of crime, and trying to link those two to some degree, although statistics don't necessarily show that immigrants commit more crimes than people who are born in this country. And you're right, this is going to be a big night for J.D. Vance, just announced a couple of nights ago by Donald Trump as his running mate. He is a name that may not be familiar to a lot of Americans, but even before he was a senator, he had a little bit of name recognition because he wrote a book called Hillbilly Elegy, which was made into a Hollywood movie about his growing up in a very poor region of the United States, the Appalachian region, and then him going off to Yale Law School, joining the elite, and now perhaps if Donald Trump wins in November, becoming the next vice president of the United States.
Right, lots happening at the RNC where you are in Milwaukee. But separately, Steve, Biden is trying desperately to end the conversation about his cognitive capacity and address what polls suggest are three of his biggest political weaknesses: immigration, the economy, and slipping support among Latinos. But the COVID diagnosis, does it mean he will not be able to mount an aggressive campaign push in the coming days as opposed to Trump's campaign?
Well, certainly not in the coming days. He flew back from Las Vegas where he was to make a speech before a Hispanic group and is on Air Force One heading for Delaware. And we got the schedule for tomorrow. He will be there all day at Rehoboth Beach in Delaware, his house there, and nothing on his schedule whatsoever. How many more days? We don't know. That will depend on when he gets a negative COVID test, obviously.
Right. Also, some within the GOP camp argue that Saturday's assassination attempt has practically sealed the election campaign. What are you picking up on in Milwaukee at the RNC where you are?
Well, of course, that's what Republicans believe, and most delegates that you would ask here, even without the assassination attempt, would have said that they believe Donald Trump is going to win this election. And if he doesn't win the election, it means it is rigged, which is what Donald Trump falsely claimed in the previous presidential election when he was didn't win re-election. Obviously, everyone here is outwardly going to be very positive about Donald Trump's chances. Right. And the others who opposed him previously all came together last night to support him.